Creature in the Well is a puzzle action game by Flight School Studios. The game sets itself apart by utilizing pinball-style mechanics in its puzzles. In this video, we're going to talk about what Creature in the Well is, how it plays, and why I think you should play it next. But before we get too far into that, my name is Dan. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I like to use this space to talk about all sorts of video games, and if that's something you like to hear about, then do me a favor and subscribe to this channel. Moving on, let's talk about Creature in the Well. Let's start with the synopsis of the game. Creature in the Well takes place in a world that is being battered by an endless sandstorm. The player controls an engineer bot, the world's last hope at activating a machine that can control the storm and possibly end it. The only thing standing in the player's way is the creature, a gigantic and shadowy figure that lives in the mountain where this machine is stored. But before we get too far into the game's world and why I think that's really interesting, let's talk about the gameplay at a very high level. While the puzzles do vary as the game goes on, they all share one common thread. And that thread involves the player bringing energy back to each puzzle, which ultimately charges the machine. The controls of this game are not only responsive, but they're also very simple. The player can move around, they can charge orbs, they can strike orbs, and they can dash out of the way of hazards. The act of aiming orbs and charging them feels really intuitive and simple, and it never got in the way of me solving a puzzle. There is a learning curve that revolves around the player understanding how to move the engineer around and how to aim the orbs, but ultimately that didn't get in my way. It just felt like a symptom of the game itself being new and different compared to other games that I've played. And since the player is going to be doing so much learning, it's good that trial and error is at the core of each of the game's puzzles. Each of the puzzles requires the player to understand what's actually going on in each room. What's going to happen if I charge that pylon? What's going to happen if I turn off that switch? And the only way to learn these things is to throw an orb at the wall and see what sticks. However, the game does feature traps that can be triggered by the player trying to brute force the solution. So if you start throwing orbs everywhere, you might get zapped by a trap that you didn't see because you were just trying everything. And when the player finally does solve a puzzle, that's when it really starts to feel like a pinball machine. Things start to light up, your score goes up, and all of a sudden you're moving on to the next room. And ultimately that provides a very gratifying experience. Everything's rewarding you for solving a puzzle, and it just feels good to move through that experience. So we talked about the gameplay. It's a pretty good time. It's a unique time, but let's talk about the world building and why we actually should care about the story in this puzzle game. At first I was drawn to this game by the art and also the gameplay, but the story took me by surprise. I found myself truly invested in learning why the world was in this dire state, how this storm started, and why it's still going on. And the game's presentation helps drive home this sad yet cartoony world by having great music and great art. The music's really moody and subtle, which is great because you'll be solving puzzles to it. And the art is simple yet striking, having a cel-shaded nature while also featuring really memorable levels that are coded by color. Ultimately, the presentation for Creature in the Well just fits and really feels good. And to keep that world building flowing, there's also lore presented to the player at the end of each major section. It gives you a lot of insight into what actually happened, why this machine was built and why it doesn't work now, and how the creature interfered. And in this lore, some of the characters that you'll actually meet are referenced, and it'll give you more context to their story and how they wound up where they are too. I found this to be a really smart way to build the story because the lore is there, and if you want it, you can go get it. I don't see the reason in skipping it. The paragraphs are very short and they're quick to read, and it really helps the game feel more fleshed out. So if you come across the lore, don't skip it. It's worth reading. And it really helped me feel like I was actually doing a quest versus just solving puzzles. It made me feel as though I was on this adventure trying to save the world rather than just getting to the next room. Another thing worth noting about Creature in the Well is how it handles variety, keeping the experience fresh. Collectibles can be found in all corners of the game's world, and who doesn't love collectibles? These can range from pure aesthetics, capes that do nothing but look good, to items that shift the gameplay in a major way, like tools that will send other orbs flying out into the area. Not only does experimenting with different tools help keep the experience fresh in Creature in the Well, you also might come across a tool that will make make a certain puzzle that you got stuck on feel easier to solve later in the game. So rather than banging your head against a puzzle, it might be a good idea to skip it and then wait until you find a tool that might suit it later on. Creature in the Well is broken up into 8 major temples, and each temple features its own take on the puzzle mechanics that the game features. And each temple starts you off simple, teaching you these mechanics, but ultimately it will lead up to a finale that involves everything you've learned up to that point. So while the game's mechanics are simple, it was really cool to see the effort put in to change up how those mechanics work and give the player something new to think about as the game progresses. And finally, one of my favorite parts of this game was the secret rooms that are found in each temple. Not only do these rooms help you upgrade your character, give you new tools or a new cape to wear, but they're also the most fun rooms to unlock in the game. The secret room puzzles are challenging but also very rewarding, and that to me is when you'll wind up experimenting with different tools, because that is where you really have to start thinking, how do I charge all of these things in the time limit? To me, this is the best kind of variety. It's optional, but also why would you skip it is a lot of fun to do. So just to state the obvious, I really loved Creature in the Well. I don't often hunt for a platinum trophy, but something about Creature in the Well's trophy list felt very inviting. So if that's something you're into as well, it was really fun to sit there. I think I played 6 hours total, and I got all the trophies in the game. I got the platinum, very proud of myself. On top of that, I also found myself shopping for Creature in the Well action figures. I would love to own an engineer bot to have on my desk. And as I'm saying all this out loud, I realized that this game really struck a chord with me. And that's why I think you should play Creature in the Well. I think any player can pick it up. I don't think it's too difficult. It's challenging like puzzle games can be, but ultimately not too bad. The gratification you'll get from solving the puzzle far outweighs the difficulty of the game. And the world is so memorable that I think you're gonna have a great time with it. And if you do wind up playing Creature in the Well, do me a favor and let me know in the comments. Let me know what your favorite tools are. What are your favorite puzzles? Let's talk about it. If this video inspired you to check out Creature in the Well, pick it up, or even look it up, just do me a favor and like the video. It's a great way to let me know that you like the video. And if you really like this video, do me a favor and subscribe to this channel. It's the #1 way to let me know that you like my content and that I should keep making more of it. But ultimately, thank you very much for even watching my video. I appreciate that the most, so thank you for that. I really did not expect to like Creature in the Well this much, and yet here I am ranting about it and raving about it. So yeah, enjoy the game if you play it, and if you don't, then put it on your backlog at least, please, because I think you're gonna love it.